Very good. So on page 186, we are on the second paragraph. This is continuing the topic of miracles, which we spoke about in some detail yesterday. The basic idea is that God created the world, God created the natural laws that govern the world. God does not, and God did so knowing that that was the best way that things should be done. And therefore God does not change the normal working of things. However, of course, God certainly does reserve for himself the ability to suspend or to override those laws at any time. He ordinarily chooses not to do so because, given normal scenarios, God chose the best way that things should be done. And that's the way they do. That's the way it works. However, there are times when God overrides that natural order of things, and that's what we perceive as a miracle. And the point that some of the points that we added was that the idea of nes, or the nes in Hebrew, is like a banner. So that's what this is. These miraculous events are standing above the natural working order of things as exceptional cases to the natural order of things. And in this way, they're like a banner. Either to say, I'm here. Yes, God says. Or they are simply, they stand out as exceptions to the rule of the rules of nature. Number one. And another point that we made was that really the whole, all of creation and the laws that govern creation are certainly themselves also miraculous. And therefore, we don't tend to view it that way because it becomes very natural to us that the sun rises and that the sun sets, or that our heart beats, or that birds chirp, or that there's a food chain, or that there are different influences that regulate climate and so forth and so on. That's all natural to us. We don't think twice about it. But the truth is, like it says in the Gemara, he who says that oil should light will have vinegar light, which means it's all a miracle. And therefore, from God's point of view, there's really no difference between manipulating the physical world according to this set of laws or according to another set of laws. It's all really miraculous, and therefore we should recognize that. And this is Nes. Nes would be, therefore, the kind of bringing forth to the surface the presence of God, which is anyway the underlying force behind all of nature and of creation. And that was connected to the point that we made regarding Hateva, nature in Hebrew, equaling in the Gematria the same as Elohim, God's name for running and governing the natural world. This is kind of what we spoke about miracles until now. Vulam, Efshar sheyase nes, lohudia amitas hashkachoso v'yecholto, ואפשר שיעשהו לפי שכך יעוש במעשהו ואמיתת הדבר. אפשר שתהיה מושגת ונגלית לפי פשט המעשה ועניינו המפורסם, ואפשר שיהיה לפי הנסתר שבדבר וסתר השגחה שבו. So this is quite a long sentence. Let's do it piece by piece. Vulam, he's giving here the different reasons why God would do a miracle and the different forms in which those miracles could take place. The first one is Vulam efshar shasei nes lohodia amitas hashgacha v'yecholto. The whole purpose of the miracle might be in order for God to make known his providence and his power over creation. Yes, lest people forget God, lest people think that God is not able to control creation. So God might decide, in order to make known and strengthen either an individual or a community or humanity with the notion of his presence and his ability to rule the world, God will do a miracle for that purpose. God might do the miracle just because the miracle is needed. It's considered to be proper, appropriate, and beneficial that this miracle take place. It might be through some divine miraculous intervention which saves one individual's life, which is something that other people might not even know about at all other than this person. So it's not about making known to people God's providence or demonstrating his power over creation. Or of course, the purpose is not to satisfy God's ego, as it were, to show his providential care over the world and has the power to do something about it, but rather, like we said, the point is to make it known to human beings. whether a group of individuals or a large group of individuals, for their benefit. Or it could be that God just sees that it's befitting to do a particular miracle for any exceptional reason. Like I said, it might be to save one person's life, where nobody might not know about it at all. In fact, the person himself might not even know about it. But he's nevertheless miraculously spared. The story about a particular anti-Semite who had a Jew in his neighborhood who regularly walked by his house on his way to work. And day after day, this non-Jew, this anti-Semite, had these feelings of hatred and animosity as he saw the Jew pass his home, until one day he said, you know what, I'm going to get rid of this Jew. What he decided to do was, he drew an X on the sidewalk underneath his roof, where the Jew walks by every day, and he got on the roof with a cinder block, right, and the Jew comes walking down. As the moment he approaches over that X, the guy lets go the cinder block, crashes down on the sidewalk, and lo and behold, the Jew's walking past on the sidewalk. How did that happen? He couldn't believe it. What happened was, at the last second, God caused a gust of wind to come. It blew the Jew's hat off his head. He deviated from his path to go pick up his hat, and then went back onto his path, leaving the crushed stone behind. A miracle. God intervened through the power of nature to save this person's life in a way the Jew didn't even know about it. So this would be an example of that type of a thing. Va'amitos hadavar efshar shetiyeh museges v'nigles lefi pshat ha'maseh. And as far as the truth of the matter of the miracle itself, it's possible that it's something which will be conceived and be revealed according to the simple observation of what has happened and what has been made known. It's possible that the miracle is really something which is hidden, something which is not revealed. And it has to do with the more mysterious providential workings of things involved here. So it could be well known, it could be hidden. The miracle, meaning God's exceptional intervention or manipulation of nature, might be for reasons above and beyond what it appears to us to be the reason. It's also true that God does miracles through those individuals who are very close to Him, His servants, in order to show His delight and His pleasure with them, insofar as He transfers to them the power of doing these miracles. Like it says in the Gemara, Tzaddik goes there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. Yes, the righteous person decrees, and God fulfills. So that God actually enables those who are close with Him, the righteous and the pious and the pure, to be involved in the miraculous running of God in the world. So that a righteous person might pray, for example, on behalf of another person and become well. And the person is cured. Lo and behold, a miracle. God is performing a natural miracle through the venue of the tzaddik. And according to the level of closeness that the person has to God, Yisbarach, so, right, to that extent, the person will have the power to do these miracles and these wondrous things. Yeah.
Could that be like giving Moshe, as an example, Moshe Rabbeinu the power to like do a miracle when he decides it's time for it, or just acting through this tzaddik who wouldn't necessarily be able to choose when a miracle needs to.
I think it's both. I think it's both. It's my understanding the author means the first side, I think, that you said, but I think it's both. Meaning, yes, God, when He wants to intervene in the running of the world in a miraculous way, can do it independent of a person, of course, but God can also perhaps do it through an individual, and in so doing, gain glory and what's the word I'm looking for?
Attention?
What's that?
Like attention?
Yes, to this righteous person, and in this way demonstrate His love and His closeness to that person. But I think He's saying much more than that. That God actually empowers the tzaddik, the righteous and the pure, to be able to perform, as it were, miracles, in order to show people that God, right, bestows His power on this person because this person is beloved to Him. And you're choosing a very good example, I think, would be Moshe. Or what, in other words, what's your point? In other words, God wanted to redeem the Jewish people. He wanted to subdue Pharaoh. So He chose Moshe as a venue through which to do that. But it wasn't really Moshe who was deciding what to do. God told Moses, pick up your staff, right? Or hit the sea, the water, or do this or that or the other. So what you're saying is, that would be actually God's decided that He wants to perform a miracle. For example,
instructions on how to bring it about.
Yeah, and he included Moshe in it for the purpose of showing his love for Moshe, gaining Moshe respect and recognition.
I can't think of examples where, beyond that, where it actually would be an individual's decision to bring about a miracle.
There's been, I think.
Can you think of an example?
I remember just right off the bat, like there was a wall, like tilting, like something about it tilting, and the Rabbi telling it to stop tilting.
Yeah.
And it stopped. You know, like.
Yeah.
You know, there are a couple of documented places.
Yeah.
Where like people like asked for the miracle to happen and it happened.
I would call it similar to the lighting the vinegar instead of oil. That you're asking for the miracle and deserving of it, but not actually doing it yourself.
You're never doing it yourself.
Yeah,
right?
He's not doing that.
Okay.
You're never. It's like.
We're on the same page now, I think.
Yeah. But I think that your distinction is still a relevant distinction, which is that sometimes God can choose to do the miracle, and He can also choose to do it through the venue of a human being. But there are also times when a person can, of his own volition, initiate the miracle, which is basically fueled by God. In which case, presumably it wouldn't have happened aside from the fact that this person kind of initiated it. So not too long ago, for example, we spoke about Eliyahu Navi calling the false prophets up to Mount Carmel in order to have a contest there, in order to demonstrate to the Jewish people who their allegiance should be with. Right? It was the prophet who called them. I don't recall that it was God who said to Elijah, make an assembly on Carmel, and there I am going to sanctify my name, but rather He Himself, if I remember correctly.
It's a where do you want to go thing, not here's the keys, you drive.
Yeah. So he was.
You should. That's
okay.
It's like it's like destroy your relationship with somebody, like consider it a tzaddik to Hashem. The more you have room to ask, like also, it's just the way it works.
The more you have room to ask, and also the more God cooperates.
Right.
So that Elijah, Eliyahu, made this pyre. He offered the sacrifice, and he basically crystallized a miracle. Fire came out of heaven and burned the sacrifice. Right? I mean, he initiated the miracle.
It's a little funny, you think that somebody initiating miracles would be like a little bit of gaiva, but that's the thing about these tzaddikim is that they're such a high level that they know it's not them at all. It's really just
right.
Hashem.
They know not to play with it.
Yeah, and not to play with it, and they know not to get the credit for it.
It's not even a question to them. It's like, of course it's Hashem. That's.
Yeah, the the only problem is, they might consider that even though they know very clearly that it's all Hashem, the observer might come to give respect, honor, glory, and even attribute power to the person himself. So he might
establish a religion around it.
Yeah, so he might refrain from using his power of miracles in order to avoid misleading other people and causing other people to. There are kind of documented stories about this type of thing as well. That tzaddikim actually refrained from doing things which would be perceived as their miraculous intervention with the working of things, because they felt that people would come to give them credit rather than God, or attribute to them power and recognition more than they were comfortable with.
Right.
So they refrained from doing so. Yeah.
Which would probably tie into like using natural processes instead of like something that's very obviously
Yeah, that's also true.
a certain subtlety.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's a good point. Again, there's a Maisa, I don't remember who the Rebbe was, but there was a couple who didn't have children, so they decided that they were going to go to the Rebbe, the rabbi, and ask for a bracha for children. So they went into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe heard the complaints of this couple. They were older already, and of course it was a very sensitive issue, and the wife was very upset, and they came and they asked the Rebbe, please help us have children, and so forth and so on. And the rabbi kind of thought for a minute, and he said, this is a very serious request. Something like that's going to cost you a lot of money. Money? That's not something they thought about. The rabbi's asking for money for his blessing. Well, how much? He told them some exorbitant amount of money. And so the wife all of a sudden got very upset. What kind of business is that? Coming to ask the rabbi for help, and this despair and anguish, and he has the insensitivity to ask us for money and so much. So she pulls her husband out of the Rebbe's room. He said, "Who needs the Rebbe? We'll pray ourselves." So they went and they prayed with great fervor. They had the child. So afterwards, it kind of, what's that?
That was his blessing?
So it was, yeah. So afterwards, kind of the word got out that this happened, and the Rebbe explained that was exactly why he didn't want to give the bracha, because he realized that they were relying on him, and they thought that he was going to be somehow giving them the child, and he didn't want that. He wanted them to rely on their own belief and faith in God and pray out fervently in God, and that's why he orchestrated this whole interaction, as if he wanted the money, an exorbitant amount of money, in order to, like I said, disconnect them from him. They shouldn't rely on him and have faith in him and think that the child is coming from him. And in the power of their pure faith, they don't need him. They can do it themselves, right with God. Their prayers were answered.
So why do we ask Beracha from Hatan?
So we ask, we ask the bracha from the Chatan, for certain reasons, and I'll tell that, and we'll say that in a minute. Yeah, but the groom, Chosin, yeah, but even there, we have to realize, of course, that the brachas are being, the prayer, the blessing is coming from Hashem, of course. It's not coming from the Chatan. Why do we direct it specific to the Chatan on the day of his wedding? And why didn't we ask him a month before? And why don't we ask him a month later? Why specifically on that day? Because the Gemara says that a chosin on the day of his chasana is nimchol al kol avanosav. All of his transgressions are removed.
From him?
Oh, so the point is, since he's so pure, he has no transgressions. He is especially beloved in Hashem's eyes. Number one. Number two, he's also in this very wonderful position of Shefa, where Kadosh Baruch Hu is bringing him his soulmate on that day, and there's tremendous divine blessing over what's happening to him in his life now. So because of his purity and because of the special divine providence over him at this day of his marriage, which is such an important day, he becomes connected like a conduit, like a source, like a channel through which the blessing of Hashem can come. And so we ask that the bracha from the husband specifically on that day. We don't ask him a few months earlier. We don't ask him a few months later. It's specifically on that day. Why? Because he's free of sin, and because the whole aura of divine favor is surrounding this person who's being a hatan, and therefore it's propitious for having the blessings received. But when a person does that, of course, he has to realize that it's really coming. Of course, it's coming from Hashem. With an ordinary chosan, a person's less likely to be confused about that. But with a tzaddik, a person might think, it's the tzaddik who's answering my prayer, it's the tzaddik who's doing it for me, and forget that it's really Hashem. There's a story about a particular person who needed a refuah, and he was like deathly sick. He went to shul, and he was asking people, what should I do and whatever. And this one says, you know what? Go ask a bracha from my Rebbe. He's the greatest tzaddik. And this one says, no, come to my Rebbe. My Rebbe is the greatest tzaddik. If you ask him, all of your prayers will be answered. And the other one, no, you have to come to my Rebbe. My Rebbe is the greatest tzaddik. Anything he says, happens. So the guy was in dire straits, He decided to go to all of the Rebbes. He got a bracha from this one, and from this one, and from this one. And lo and behold, he got well. So then everybody started arguing. All of the Hasidim started arguing. It was my Rebbe's bracha who worked. And the other one says, your Rebbe, it was my Rebbe's bracha who worked. And the other one says, yours? What are you guys talking about? My Rebbe's bracha is the one that made the guy better. So they started an argument. So the guy was confused. Which Rebbe's bracha? So he went to a rabbi, explained to the situation. So what's going on over here? Whose bracha really helped? So I tell you a secret. It's really a Kadosh Baruch Hu who made you well. Only Nebuch, unfortunately, he doesn't have any Hasidim. So that's the point. People can get into this whole mentality and mindset where it's the rabbi and it's the tzaddik and it's the holy man and he does and he prays and he makes and he this and that and the other, and that's dangerous business over there. You have to realize that it's Einal Nirado. It only comes from the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yes, and the tzaddik himself, if he's a true tzaddik, knows that he's only a channel. As we've mentioned, for Karen, it's because he empties himself of self that he becomes a channel. Right. Only the problem is that other people don't recognize that, and they'll come to ascribe powers to him, which are really the powers of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that tzaddikim might refrain from being actively and openly involved in helping people as a channel if they feel that it's actually going to distract and deflect people's commitment and enthusiasm from God. And they can refrain from doing it in an open type of a way. In any case, the whole point of bringing together Chosin and Kala under the chuppah is a tremendous scenario of shefa, and you're talking about literally the bringing into fruition the purpose of creation for these two people, and therefore it's that kind of that point of contact between the Chosin and Kala, meaning not only physically but spiritually, is a tremendous manifestation of shefa, of divine blessing. And therefore, he and also she, the Kala as well, are very pivotally poised to share of that bracha, that shefa, with other people. Umichlal ze ha'inyan, included in this matter, shehine ratza Adon Baruch Hu l'karei b'shemo shonim. I was thinking about this point myself, which was these nisim that take place through the tzaddik are, to what extent is it the God's fulfilling their will, and to what extent is it dependent on the tzaddik's ability to pronounce divine names and manipulate spiritual forces in that way? So that's, I think, what he's getting at here in this last paragraph. Umiklal ze inyan, included in this phenomenon of God fulfilling miracles or performing miracles in order to fulfill the will of the tzaddik, included in this is Shehine Ratza Adon Baruch Hu l'karei b'shem shonim. It was God's will that he be referred to by different names. Kefi sisrei hashpaos shehu mashpia lo ilamoi v'hanaga shemanig. According to the specific form of shefa, of abundance and influence that God wants to bring down into his world, v'hanaga shemanig, and the particular rulership which he expresses. So different divine names express different forms of divine influence in the world and different forms of divine rulership over the world. Vumnam, Rotza v'chokok, shebakoach shemosa v'kadoshim, and therefore God desired and he decreed that through the power of these particular holy names, behizkeram, when they are pronounced, yischadishu gam ken niflos rabos ba'olam, there will become renewed very wondrous influences in the world. So that, for example, the tzaddik might not just pray that this person get well, or express his desire that the person get well, such that God miraculously fulfills the tzaddik's will that this person be better, but that the tzaddik can also pronounce divine names, which have to do with the power and influence of remedy in the world. And therefore, right, it's more specific than just God's fulfilling the will of the righteous. It's the righteous ability to actually manipulate powers, spiritual powers which pervade the world, and use them for good. So there are names of angels, which are associated with, for example, curing and healing. Raphael, for example. Other types of divine names, and things like this. So that the tzaddikim are not just asking God to perform a miracle, but they're actually more specifically manipulating the forces of Rafu in the world. Or the same thing might go for Parnasa, or for Zivug, soulmate, or for whatever else they're trying to do, interact, and help, intercede on behalf of the world. V'ulam, chilek v'sider hadvarim b'hochma nifla, all of these matters were organized with a wondrous wisdom. V'sham segula, v'sam segula, b'chol shem v'shem, and God placed a special power in each and every name, according to what was decreed by His wisdom, lahamshich b'haskarasoy, in order to draw down through His recitation of this name, hashpos ahema, these particular influences, shalidein, through which yizchadshu niflo se'elo, there will be renewed these influences into the world. So we find, for example, even on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol would mention the Shema Mefurash, the divine name, Yud K, Vav K, and all of the Kohanim and all of the people that were there listening, heard that name, they fell on their faces and they cried out, right? Voluntarily
or involuntarily?
I think even involuntarily, yeah? That they were so awestricken by the power that was infused into the community as the Kohen Gadol in purity pronounced this name. And as he pronounced this name, people were awestruck and they fell on their faces, they pronounced the glory of God. So what the Kohen Gadol was doing in Yom Kippur was bringing down an influence of power of God in order to bring about a spirit of tshuva, of repentance upon the people, and they all fell flat out, prostrated themselves before God. So much so that we're told in Pirkei Avos that a tremendous miracle took place. There were so many people packed in the area of the Beis Hamikdash that for every 3 people, one was lifted off his feet because he was crushed by the other 2. That's how packed it was. Yeah? But when they heard the divine name, the ineffable name, meaning the unpronounceable name, which doesn't mean to say it cannot be pronounced, it can phonetically be pronounced, but it's something which we're not allowed to do. Only once a year, by the Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippur, did he pronounce this divine name. And at that time, such a spirit of humility entered the people that when they fell down in repentance like this, while standing, they were so cramped. But the Pirkei Avos told us a miracle took place that literally every person who was lying flat out had a distance of 4 amos around, so that each could repent and say his confessions privately without another person hearing.
I never heard the 4 amos around or during when the Kohen Gadol said the unpronounceable name. I heard it is like during the Amida and the Elena when it's time to prostrate yourself.
Yeah, so here they actually did what's called Pishut Yadayim V'Raglayim, was not only that they bowed, but they were flat out. Hands and feet spread like this, and there was enough space between everybody that each one could be involved in his own personal confessions without being embarrassed at the thought that the person next to him heard. And all of this was through the power of the Kohen Gadol pronouncing that name in purity. So this is the type of thing that we're talking about, the influence that can be brought down into the world, the shefa that can be brought down in the world through the righteous, the tzaddikim is pronouncing the difference of the divine names. The Kohen Gadol pronounced this name 10 times during Yom Kippur. 10 times. 3 times during each of the confessions that he made, either for him and his household, his fellow Kohanim, and the Jewish people. Those are 3 different confessions he made on behalf of those 3 categories. And during each category, he pronounced the divine name, the Shema Mefurash, the name Yud, Hey, and Vav and Hey, as it's pronounced phonetically. He pronounced it 3 times each for a total of 9. And then he pronounced it a 10th time when he made the Gorolot. The, how do you say Gorolot in English?
The lots?
Thank you. Yeah, the lots between the goat that would be offered for the Yom Kippur service and the scapegoat, which was toppled off the cliff, and that's the 10th time that he mentioned this Shem Mefurash. And there was a miracle that took place, that there was a scarlet thread that was hung in the base of Mikdash, and when that Seir LaAzazel, the scapegoat, was tossed over the cliff and dismembered, and the Jewish people's transgressions were therefore disembodied and nullified. They became purified from their transgressions. This red string that was hanging in Jerusalem, far away from where the goat had been tossed, would miraculously turn white, as it says that God will make our sins, which were like scarlet, white, pure as white. Yeah, but that all depended on the holiness of the Kohen Gadol. In later years, when the Kohen Gadol's position was not acquired by being voted in by his fellow Kohanim, who were tzaddikim, but rather it was a paid position.
Corruption.
Yeah, paid in what way? Through bribery. And Jews were paying the Roman authorities for the honor of becoming the Kohen Gadol, but it was not earned through one's righteousness, purity, and sanctity. So there, the name of God was not pronounced, and it didn't. If it was, it didn't have the proper effect. Nor did the atonement take place, and the red thread did not become white, and actually more often than not, the Kohen Gadol didn't make it past Yom Kippur, because when he went into the Holy of Holies, he was out of place there, and he died. Yes, and they had to tie ropes around his waist in order to tug him out of there in the event that he wouldn't make it, which has happened in the majority of cases. In the latter years of the Beis Hamikdash, when the Kohen Gadol was not on the level that he should be. He shouldn't be pronouncing those divine names, and he shouldn't have been in the Holy of Holies, given his lack of holiness.
Question: the Kodesh Kodashim, was it missing something in the second Beis Hamikdash?
Yeah, it was missing the Arna Kodesh.
So would the coin still die if you went in?
Yeah, I mean it's still the place of the Holy of Holies.
Yeah, it's still where the Shekhinah is.
Yeah, so the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh Kodashim, and a person who would go in there would be Chayav Kares, and would be Chayav Kares. Aside from the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, if he was tahor, but since the Kohanim, like I said, were not fitting to do the service, they were rejected from it, and they died. And that just shows you how much the pursuit of honor and glory how far it can push a person, even though they knew that in the past, and as would probably be the case with them, they probably wouldn't make it through Yom Kippur. Still, being the Kohen Gadol until Yom Kippur, it was worth paying all that money, even though they knew that they'd probably die. That's how infused they were with jealousy and with desire for power and recognition and so on. What was that? Resurrection. Yeah, I don't know if that would work, but it's true that before Yom Kippur they would appoint a secondary Kohen Gadol if anything happened to the first. So it could be that some guy said, you know what, I'll be Kohen Gadol till Yom Kippur. Every Yom Kippur I'll disqualify myself and let somebody else do it. But no, but that was the glory part. That was that was the highest part, the highest experience of Kohen Gadol, which distinguished him from anybody else, was the ability to serve on Yom Kippur and the Holy of Holies. Problem is that through this desire for power and recognition and so forth and so on, people were actually willing to sacrifice their lives, which many did.
Question: when setting up the Kodesh Kodashim, when does the Shekhinah actually rest? Is it right after everything's put into place, or as soon as they get out of the room?
That's an excellent question. Yeah, that's an excellent question. The discussion about that regarding whether, since you're allowed to build a Holy of Holies by people who are not Kohanim, and even if they're Tameh, we learned that together?
No.
Didn't we learn it together? If there's no way of getting Tar Kohanim, there's a hierarchy of who you can use, ending up with even people who are impure non-Kohanim. They're allowed to do that for the purpose of building the base of Mikdash. The question is, what do they do between completing building it, and getting out? They're permitted to be there for the purpose of building, but once it's built, right? When does the kedusha actually chal? Yeah.
I imagine the kedusha begins when
The last stone is put into place. Yeah.
Leave.
Or when they leave. Yeah.
So no one should be punished for building the kosh.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I would expect no one should be in tameh for preparing a paraduma either, and that's not the case.
Yeah. So I don't have a clear answer for that one. I don't have a clear answer.
Whether the streeter on the wall.
It could very well be that the holiness takes place as soon as it's completed, but a special dispensation is made. That's also part of building, even though they're not building. But part of building is finishing building and getting out. So that may not help that. But there's such a thing as inaugurating the temple, and it could be that's the time in which it really becomes fully operative with the Shekhinah. Okay, let's end here. Let you guys have time to get to the next class. And continue B'ezrat Hashem next time.